What's up, guys? Welcome to the Punk's first pay-per-view recap. Extreme Rules was on Sunday and is basically the WWE's follow-on show from WrestleMania, and probably the best way to kill a few feuds that are still lingering over from the shows before they actually begin their summer program. So they could rename it Rematchamania. They don't. They call it Extreme Rules, which is slightly ironic, really, because there's not usually much going on in the terms of extreme. Those fans who are fans of the old ECW will probably turn in their graves or shake at the sight of this show. It's just not really for the extreme minded. It's basically, you'll be lucky if you see about 3 or 4 chairs, a few kendo sticks, a couple of tables. Not really anything extreme, but WWE like to say it's extreme. Let's just let them keep it. So. We saw a few matches, as I said, coming back from WrestleMania, a few rematches, and we also saw a couple of new feuds, probably based around the fact that obviously CM Punk has disappeared for a while, and there have been a few injuries, especially, most notably, to Dolph Ziggler, who picked up a concussion a couple of weeks ago, unfortunately, and that radically changed the outlook on the World Heavyweight title picture, culminating in an I Quit match between Jack Swagger and Alberto Del Rio. But moving on, what we'll do is we'll go over each match and assign it a score, and I'll give the show an end score right at the end. So opening up the show, we had one of the rematches from WrestleMania, Chris Jericho versus Fandango. That match at WrestleMania was actually one of my favourites on the undercard. It was a surprising gem, and it did really well in terms of putting over Fandango. Chris Jericho is obviously very good at that, and since he came back last year, he's been putting over a lot of people. That wasn't the case at Extreme Rules. He actually picked up the victory to even up the score, really, at 1-1. So we'll probably see a rubber match, maybe a payback. So it was a good match. It was fairly, it wasn't as good as their initial encounter at WrestleMania. But it didn't stop it from being a pretty decent curtain jerker. Jericho picked up the win with I can only assume that Fandango was trying to go for a splash in the top corner, which got countered into a code breaker, which was pretty cool to see, even though it did look like something out of WWE 13, but they always look cool anyway. So Fandango suffers his first defeat since making his debut, and Chris Jericho needed that win, really. He's not very good at winning on pay-per-view since he came back. I'm actually trying to remember the last time he actually won on pay-per-view. I think that might be when he beat Dolph Ziggler last year. So, yeah, Chris Jericho picks up the win. That match, obviously not as good as WrestleMania, but I gave it 3 stars. Moving on, second match, we had one of the internet wrestling community's most anticipated fights ever. Dean Ambrose taking on Kofi Kingston for the United States title, and surprise, surprise, Dean Ambrose won. Which was good, because Kofi Kingston is transitional champion. He's never going to be over in the same way as Dean Ambrose, who I honestly think is going to be one of the WWE's top stars in a couple of years, and that is something that you can probably take to the bank. If he turns face, look for him to become just as big as John Cena in the next few years. So Dean Ambrose wins with one of his strange move, which just looks ridiculously awesome, and that's the headlock driver. It's like a reverse bulldog DDT, and he drove Kingston's head into the mat and picked up the win. Interestingly, he wasn't accompanied to the ring by the Shield, which I actually called originally. I think WWE did that as a way to put him over as someone who can legitimately hold their own in the ring without the aid of obviously his comrades. So good match. I gave the match 3.5 out of 5. So a good effort there. Obviously not as stellar as it will be, in the future. Third match, everyone's favourite or least favourite stipulation ever is the strap match between Sheamus and Mark Henry. A strap match is about as good as a strap match can be. It's very restrictive because obviously they're both tied together, so it didn't really allow for a lot of action there. I thought the fight was going to be the match was going to be a little more hard hitting and a little faster than what it actually was. It was more of a tactical battle of who could actually touch the 4 corners first. They had these bizarre lights, which I've never seen before for a strap match, where Each turnbuckle was fitted with a light system which glowed red if Mark Henry hit the pad, and green if Sheamus hit the pad. I don't know why they used it. Strap matches worked perfectly fine before without them, but WWE obviously wanted to add some sort of new exciting element for people who had no idea how these matches work. So it was quite simple though. But Sheamus picked up the upset win. Actually, I had Mark Henry going over this. Obviously considering his push recently and his dominance, but Sheamus won by touched the third turnbuckle, hit Henry with a bro kick, and picked up the win. It wasn't very interesting. It wasn't entertaining. But obviously it's great for Sheamus' momentum. So I give the match. Got to stop saying that. 2. The fourth match, the number one contenders I Quit match between Jack Swagger and Alberto Del Rio, was actually far better than I thought it was going to be. I Quit matches are very hit and miss, especially if it's John Cena involved, and this is probably the first I Quit match I've seen without John Cena since about 2009. Correct me if you can. But I don't think I've seen one since Matt Hardy and Jeff Hardy without John Cena. So it was actually quite a hard-hitting barbaric match. Actually, obviously that's if your idea of barbaric involves kendo sticks and chairs. You won't see any cheese graters or VCRs or anything like that, or trolleys, guys. It's not ECW. But these guys actually have a really good in-ring chemistry. Their rivalry's got better since it began, so it's something that's getting better with age. To open up the show, Zeb Coulter came down and made some sort of political-minded promo like only he can do. I really don't like the idea of mixing politics with wrestling, but to stay fresh and current, obviously the WWE want that to kind of happen. So Zeb Coulter sprouting his mouth for a good 3 or 4 minutes allowed me a great opportunity to go for a piss, get a beer. So thanks for that, Colt. The match, as I said, actually exceeded expectations. It was a fluid match. The only problem I have with it is Mike Shinoda, the referee, holding the mic up to everyone every 5 seconds and going, "Do you want to quit?" Every 5 seconds. It got on my nerves very quickly, as it did with quite a few of you, I can probably imagine. But the match also, it was predictable in the respect that we knew that Swagger or Del Rio was going to win by submission. They both got submission finishing moves. It seemed logical for that to happen, and we were right. Del Rio forced Swagger to say "I quit" with the cross arm breaker or cross arm bar, and it was a decent match. I mean, there was a few spots involving Swagger tearing the protective shielding off the barricades. Del Rio snapping the kendo stick with his back breaker move. So it was a little bit more hard hitting than I thought it was going to be. So for that reason, I gave the match 3.5 out of 5. As basically it did exceed expectations, and it served as a great fill while Dolph Ziggler recoups. So hopefully he'll be back soon, and he can beat Del Rio convincingly on Raw or SmackDown, because that's probably what's going to happen. The next match was The Shield taking on Team Hell No for the tag team titles, and another match that we all knew that was going to happen exactly the same way as it actually panned out. The Shield defeating Team Hell No to end their 245-day reign. They build it as a tornado tag match, which is usually means it's going to be pretty chaotic and all over the place, and that suits the Shield down to the ground, and that's what we got. It was a pretty decent match, all over the place, and obviously the Shield won to ensure that all 3 members now hold gold. Interesting to see where Team Hell No go from this. It should be. They'll probably get a rematch. They'll probably lose that. And what I'm hoping that they just split, because Daniel Bryan has so much potential to go on to a world title challenge or reign. Kane is kind of approaching the end of his career. Sadly, he's been a great servant to the WWE, and perhaps he can help try and put over some of the younger talent. But we'll see going forward. So that match I gave 3 4.5 out of 5. So another pretty decent but average match, but pretty entertaining nonetheless. The third from last match was the Extreme Rules match, which I actually originally thought was going to open up the show. That was the Big Show versus Randy Orton, and it surprised. Even though there was only like 2 weapons used and it was hardly extreme, the Big Show and Randy Orton kind of had a pretty good fight, a brawl all over the place. It was typical Randy Orton and Big Show offence. Really, they're not the 2 most interesting guys to watch, but they can provide a good scrap. And Orton won surprisingly with his punt kick. Well, it wasn't surprising to me anyway, but he won with a punt kick. It's a move that we haven't seen for a while. It's actually banned by the WWE because of its violent nature and their whole stance on having the product TV PG, which don't get me started on. But a top rope elevated DDT from Orton to Big Show, a couple of RKOs, one onto a chair, and a punt for the finish. A few good spots involving Big Show in what can only be described as trying to Vader bomb Randy Orton through a ladder. That just looked like it was going to hurt, and the Big Show was quite tentative as he climbed the turnbuckle, and rightfully so. I mean, going through a ladder like that probably hurts, but that was quite an interesting, cool little spot. So yeah, I mean, I wasn't expecting much from their match, and I was pleasantly surprised. So I gave the match overall 3. That's 4. 3 out of 5. The final 2 matches, obviously, it could have gone as Brock Lesnar or Triple H going on last, and that actually turned out to be the case. So the part-timers finished up the show. But before that, we had John Cena defending the WWE title against Ryback in the Last Man Standing. That's another match that no one really gave much of a chance to, and they surprised actually. It seems that Ryback's a good fit for John Cena, and vice versa. They're both power wrestlers, both with very aggressive base, and it was a good fight. And it really didn't pick up though until obviously the action spilled out of the ring, which culminated in Ryback smashing John Cena through the stage. I've seen a couple of spots like this before in the last few years, and this one was very reminiscent of Undertaker throwing Brock Lesnar through the Unforgiven sign in 2002, or Big Show chokeslamming John Cena through the light at Backlash 2009, but it was something that we hadn't seen done that way before. Obviously smashing through the LED displays. The referee, which annoyed me quite a lot, stopped the count for some reason. And the fight basically ended as a no contest and draw, which meant that John Cena retained the title. So it should be interesting to see where that rivalry goes from there, because what they've done is they've just effectively prolonged the rivalry by having neither men lose. But I was quite impressed with a few of John Cena's moves. He actually powerbombed Ryback, which is something we don't see every day. And Ryback, with a few of his deadlift power bombs as well, he's very impressive. I know he's quite green and not very good on the mic, but if you give him a decent match and an ability to throw his strength around, then he can impress. So a good effort from both. And I gave the match 4. I'm actually holding up 4 this time. 4 out of 5. Probably the match of the night, by far actually. The final match, Steel Cage, Brock Lesnar, Triple H. It was as good as you can expect from a steel cage match, I guess. It was. They debuted a new steel cage, kind of higher. Didn't really look that different to me, but they said it was new, so it was new. Brock Lesnar defeated Triple H. He was able to hit the pedigree. Not the pedigree. That's Triple H's move. He hit Triple H with a sledgehammer that Triple H introduced. That was camouflaged at the top of the cage, and then hit his F5 move for the win. It was just a few strength moves. They did an injury angle with Brock Lesnar, which I had reservations about, because if you've got Brock Lesnar, who's a former UFC champion, why is he going to scream like a bitch when somebody whacks his knee? He was literally shrieking like a banshee. It was horrible and bizarre and weird, and obviously they did it because they wanted to show Triple H as being a superior brawler than Brock Lesnar, which is fucking shit, because I don't imagine Triple H would have much luck if he ever went into the UFC. But you know, that's my 2 cents on that. So Brock Lesnar wins, effectively finishes up that feud. Let's hope that WWE can find something decent for Brock Lesnar in the next few months, and let's hope that Triple H can quietly retire, because I think it's about time, really. He's looking a little bit out of shape now, and well, not out of shape, but he's looking. He just needs to wrap up, so it's about time, really. He's had a good career. Time to wind it down. But so all in all, Extreme Rules, not as good as last year, but it's been better than a few installments in the past. I personally think they should actually dump the whole Extreme Rules name and go back to Backlash, because calling something extreme implies that he's going to be something resembling the old school ECW or even old school WWE hardcore wrestling, which it just isn't anymore. You know, you can't have an extreme pay-per-view when it's WWE PG. It just doesn't work. So all in all, I gave the event 3 out of 5. It's going to be interesting to see how WWE progress their feuds into the summer. I have good feelings about it. I think that the new crop of superstars are some of the best that WWE have had in a long, long time. And if they can do a real decent job at the changing of the guard, then I really think that we could have a very good summer in the WWE. So all in all, as I said, 3 out of 5. Not the best show, not the worst, with a few matches that didn't fail to impress, and a few that exceeded expectations as well. Thank you very much for watching. I'll see you all next month for WWE Payback.